Hi, my name's Cam. I'm from the Coder Career and I want to explain 5 quick lessons you can take as a career-changing software engineer. If you're not a career changer though, you'll probably still find some value from this video, so please do stick around. If you're not familiar with me already, I'm a software engineer who used to be a technical recruiter. I learned a lot of lessons from my career transition and my previous career in technical recruitment, so I wanted to create this tech careers network to help people with their career transitions and to grow within the industry. My first lesson is to not be intimidated about the fact you don't have a computer science degree and not to dwell on it. I worried about this for way too long, but ultimately, unless you're willing to sacrifice several years of your life, there's no point thinking about it because it's not going to happen. Sometimes in life, we make decisions that we regret. I wished I'd done a computer science year in my business degree, and I also wished that I hadn't sold Bitcoin in 2013, but here we are. If you really feel like you've missed out on something, you should go on to edX or Coursera, links in description, and take some of the computer science classes on there for free. One I particularly recommend is Harvard CS50. It covers all the fundamentals and has been taken by people such as Mark Zuckerberg. He even did a guest lecture once. So I definitely recommend that if you want to understand what maybe you missed out on. One thing I would say, although I can't speak from experience myself, a lot of my friends with a comp sci degree said they never actually really use any of the concepts if they're a web developer. My second point is to make your previous career your USP. What do I mean by USP? That means a unique selling point. You get a job in the labour market by standing out compared to your peers/other applicants. If you're someone that's changed careers, chances are you can draw on a very different type of experience. It can be really useful for a company to have someone maybe domain knowledge from the commercial side. Or in my case, it can be useful for a company to have someone in who knows how to recruit. In my case, because I spent all my time either recruiting or doing sales, I was really used to working with key stakeholders. So I understood pain points, I understood UX issues. As such, that's really helped me throughout my career, and I use it as a USP in interviews and really emphasize it. I also as well help out with recruitment because it's always good to keep those skills fresh. So don't feel bad about being a career changer in this respect. Absolutely own it. My next tip is that you should utilize your existing network in 2 capacities. Capacity number 1 is the simple one. Ask people for referrals, friends of friends, etc. I got my first job through a referral via my existing professional network. You can do that yourself as well via either a personal or professional network. Think about who you know that works in the tech industry and would they be able to help you out, or do they know someone that can help you out? It can be helpful to think about some sales theory here because it can be a little bit intimidating to reach out to people that maybe you haven't spoken to in a while, but they will also have an incentive to help you get a role. The second angle on this is a little bit more complicated, but you may find it really pays off. So when I was learning to code myself, I was really struggling. I was in the doldrums and I felt like I wasn't getting any better. These days, I guess I would call it tutorial hell, but I didn't realise that there was actually a word for it back then. As almost a last resort, I got a consultancy job with a startup on a day rate, and I negotiated with them and I said, if I work as your recruiter 4 days a week, would you let me be your software engineer for 1 day a week? That deal worked out really well because I still got paid the same. So I was being paid to learn, and I got to learn directly from professional software engineers, and I got to see exactly how an enterprise code base worked. So that tip will work particularly well for anyone who works for a tech company already, but it's always worth checking out what kind of technology presence your company has. Almost every single company these days has at least a website. Maybe you can contribute to that. And for very large companies, particularly tech ones, they often have internal retraining schemes. My day job, our company has actually just announced that as well. So if you're working for us, in the retail arm or something like that, you will actually be able to be retrained by the company, which is really cool. My next tip is to have some kind of presence online. The 2 most obvious places to have a presence when we're talking about trying to get a job would be LinkedIn and Twitter. Twitter is great if you want to connect with other developers of all experience levels, but if you want to connect with recruiters, LinkedIn is the best way. You can post the same content to both platforms. It tends to lend itself quite nicely, particularly the long form. Threads on Twitter will work quite nicely as LinkedIn posts. Many of you will be familiar with the hashtag 100 Days of Code challenge, which is where you have to code for 1 hour a day for 100 days in a row. People post their results on Twitter and post updates to what they're working on. However, people haven't really been doing this on LinkedIn until recently. I've seen a couple of junior people do it and I'm really impressed with it, and I think that sort of thing will really stand out to recruiters. I see the engagement levels they get are really high and I imagine they would get jobs relatively quickly off the back of that. Think about it from the recruiter's perspective. When they post a junior job, you will get hundreds of applicants. It's very hard to differentiate them. One way you can differentiate them is someone that actively posts about updating their progress. It doesn't have to be braggy or anything like that. It can just explain what you're working on or even what you're struggling with. I'm trying to do this myself still, particularly with the Coder Career, and join in with the hashtag Build in Public movement, which is a similar thing for people that are working on side projects. My final point is something where if you're familiar with me and the Coder Career already, I bang on about all the time, and that's make notes, and when in doubt, make even more notes. I'd personally recommend Notion for this. I put a link to that in the bio. Notion's free and is basically a notes app on steroids. The reason why I'd recommend Notion above any kind of like traditional like Notepad or something like that is that all of your notes are searchable. You can put them in categories, you can tag them, everything like that, which makes it much easier to look back on and make cheat sheets and that kind of thing. It even supports Markdown and code. So I use that from everything, literally from the shopping list to the script for this video, to remembering Java syntax, for instance. And another tip, don't stop doing this once you get your first job in tech. If anything, you need to write more notes. Every single time you learn something new, write it down because you will find it useful. In your first dev job, you're going to be learning so much it may be difficult at times to keep track. That's why I'd really recommend taking lots of notes. In fact, my biggest regret from both my first dev job and when I first started learning to code is not writing enough notes. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're not familiar already with the Coder Career, we're a careers network that want to help you break into tech, level up, and stand out in our wonderful industry. You can find us here on YouTube, but also as well on TikTok, Twitter, and don't forget to check out our podcast as well. We also host a lot of events, both here in Scotland and also live streamed throughout the world. If you want to see any particular kind of content from us, please let me know. You can do that either via the comments or joining our Discord. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Coder Career, and happy coding.